So evidently, I'm doing it wrong.
You're doing it f***ing wrong.
We'll get back to that, but I'm going to start with a story that I don't think I've told on this channel. And if you're new here, my name is Chase Sanborn and I'm a jazz trumpet player based in Toronto. Over the years, I've taught thousands of students, many of them as a professor in a university jazz program. But I've always had a contingent of adult students as well, and this story centers on one of those. I'm going back quite a few years, so at the time he was probably about a generation older than me, but maybe about the same age that I am now. He was an amateur sax player who came to me for a lesson on jazz improvisation. We only had the one lesson, and I've forgotten what his name was, so we'll just call him Bob. As I would do in any lesson, I asked Bob to play something so I could get a sense of where he was at. He had a concept that was rooted in the swing style of Lester Young and Ben Webster, and he sounded pretty good in that style. I asked him what he was looking for from me, and he said he wanted to get more modern vocabulary into his lines. So I pulled out Jerry Bergonzi's book on pentatonics. To be sure, it's a daunting book for a trumpet player because every page is filled with intervallic patterns that traverse more than 2 octaves. I spent years working out of this book, but mostly I just fingered the lines rather than trying to play them, and over time pentatonics worked their way into my playing. Anyway, I showed Bob how the patterns are constructed and Jerry's systematic approach for applying pentatonics to standard chord progressions. He paid close attention and he diligently tried to get his head and his fingers around the patterns. Towards the end of the lesson, I wanted him to hear what it sounded like in the hands of someone who really knows what they're doing with them, so I played him one of the demonstration tracks with Jerry playing. And on hearing that, his reaction was, "That's the kind of music I hate." When I heard that, I laughed out loud, and I asked why he wanted to learn how to do something that he hated. His response was just that he felt that he should. After that, we talked for a while about how the music of Jerry Bergonzi or any other saxophone player doesn't negate the brilliance and the beauty of Lester Young and Ben Webster, any more than Stravinsky negates Bach or Beethoven. In the end, Bob left the lesson, content in the knowledge that he wasn't wrong to want to play the music the way he liked to hear it. I relate this story in the context of a previous video that centered on the questions of whether the measure of artistic achievement is tied to popularity and whether an artist should or must consider the opinion of others in assessing the quality and the content of their art. There were some interesting thoughts in the comments. Besson 3C writes, "I think that artists can benefit from paying attention to what resonates with a lot of people. Not because art should resonate with a lot of people, but because there's something particularly powerful when it does." I can accept the premise that art doesn't exist in a vacuum, or at least that it might not be fully formed in that state. That there's a symbiotic relationship between the artist, a musician in this case, and the listener. If a musician plays only in their basement, with nobody to hear it, it's reasonable to think that the music itself would be different if it was played in front of a live audience. So in that situation, the interaction definitely impacts the creation. The concept becomes a little bit more opaque when the music is heard after the fact, as in a recording. When Glenn Gould retired from public performance, preferring the total control over his music that he could get by being alone in a recording studio, did that make him any less of an artist? What if his recordings were never released and they served only to satisfy his own need to create? It could be a little bit like the tree falling in the forest. Does music exist, or can it be considered good music if no one hears it? It's difficult for any of us to know with certainty whether something that we've produced is good. I remember the great Canadian bandleader Rob McConnell saying that when he handed out a new chart, he knew by the looks on the musicians' faces whether or not it was a good chart. I think it's safe to assume that there are few among us who are so totally self-assured that we truly don't care what anyone else thinks about us. The question then is, do we, and to what degree do we shape or alter our creative output in hopes of pleasing the audience? First, we have to draw a distinction between something that is done with the intention of making money versus something that emanates from artistic creativity, albeit with the hope of popular acceptance. In the first case, the opinions of others matter a great deal. It's really more the second case that we're talking about. In my own career as a performer, it's really not a question that I've had to grapple with very often. As a session player, I was paid to add my part to someone else's musical vision, whether that's a creative project or a commercial jingle or a Broadway show. In that situation, it's someone else's job to determine whether the music will appeal to or have the desired effect on a target audience. My job is just to play what I've been hired to play. When it came time to present my music, as in my own CDs, the expectation was never that they would make money. Even in what now seems like the good old days, when you could hope to recoup the costs of recording by selling CDs off the bandstand, you'd be doing well if you eventually broke even. So my only goal was to play music the way I like to hear it, to the best of my ability. Just like Bob. Where I can relate to the question is on this YouTube channel. When I started posting videos about 6 years ago, I had no experience with video production and I had a minimal understanding of YouTube. My knowledge and my skills in both those areas have increased dramatically through both study and application. I know that I'm making much better videos than I used to, and I get positive feedback from people like you. So why do I have the nagging feeling that I'm doing something wrong? As a YouTuber, it's impossible not to be aware of your success or failure as determined by the number of views that each video gets. I suppose it would be possible to never look at your analytics, but I don't know who could do that. Most of the time, I'll see a spike in views in the first hour after a video is posted, and then, with some ups and downs, it'll be a general downward trend over the following days and weeks. It's like blowing up a balloon that quickly starts to deflate, and you have to start blowing up another balloon right away to keep the momentum from stalling. I didn't start this channel with the hopes of amassing a large audience or becoming a viral sensation, and you may be thinking to yourself, just as well. But I'm not immune to the lure of popularity. I watch a ton of channels that offer advice on how to get more clicks and views and watch time, and every YouTuber knows the channels that I'm talking about. With everything I've learned, I could probably make one of those channels myself, although without a silver play button behind me, there's definitely a bit of a credibility issue. The thing is, so much of the advice on those channels is focused on getting views as the primary goal or reason for having a YouTube channel. In some ways, they prey on the hopes of people who see this as a potential money-making opportunity more than as a creative outlet. It's a little like the people who got rich selling mining equipment to hopeful prospectors during the gold rush. I dutifully try to incorporate all the suggestions about titles and thumbnails and hooks, and whether or not I should ask you to subscribe. And you should, by the way. But the question that I have to ask myself is, what's my primary goal? Is it to amass a large audience, or to create something that's a durable and meaningful reflection of who I am, how I feel, and what I think? Now, both would be great, of course. But if I don't attract a large audience, for whatever reason, what does that say about my videos? Am I the judge of whether they are good or not? And I think they are. Or does the YouTube algorithm and the viewing audience have the last say? Is the value of the channel measured by the income it generates? On this channel, after 6 years and hundreds of uploads and a subscriber base that's inching up towards 30,000, the money that I earn directly from YouTube in an average month will buy me a couple of pub dinners. And when you weigh that against the number of hours that I invest in the channel, most people would not consider that to be a value proposition. There is spin-off revenue, like book sales and students who come to me for online lessons. And on that topic, if you value the information that you get from the videos on this channel, you'll find a lot more of it in my books. And if you order one from my website, which is chasesanborn.com, you get it signed by the author. And you get the satisfaction of knowing that you bought me a beer or a chicken wing. And I very much appreciate everyone who does that. If I listen to the YouTube gurus who tell me that by this time, if I'm doing everything right, my channel should be earning a six-figure income, well, then I'm definitely doing something wrong. One thing that I know I'm doing wrong, according to them, is spending too much time on each video, especially scripting and editing. That means that I fall short of posting a new video every week, which they say is the bare minimum. I already put a lot of hours into the channel every week, so to increase the frequency with which I upload, I'd either need to work at a burnout pace or put less time and care into each video. Either of those things would eliminate the fun of doing this, and making videos is just like playing music. If you're not having fun, it's far too much work to make it worthwhile. Is the value of the channel measured by the number of views it gets? A lot of my videos in the short term generate somewhere between 1,000 and 3,000 views. Some do better, a few do much better, and some never crack 1,000. This could be one of those. In social media terms, those are small numbers. On the other hand, if 500 people showed up to my gig, I'd be ecstatic. Everything is relative. So am I doing this right or wrong? I'm sure there are those who would say that ticking the box for jazz musician as my choice of career was a wrong, if not downright boneheaded decision. And I know there are people who feel that it's wrong for a jazz educator like me to encourage students to follow an uncertain path, that I'm selling a false dream, just like I said about the YouTube gurus. I reject that notion, no surprise, but I understand where it's coming from. In the end, and to bring this back where we started, I remain firmly of the opinion that when the music you play is an honest reflection of you, you're doing it right, no matter what anybody else thinks. But just in case, don't quit your day job. If you agree, heck, even if you don't, please take a second to click the like button and then watch one of those videos that you see up there.